Hey, everybody. Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go because of you.
On today's show, one of my all-time heroes, Chris Bryant. He is such a dynamic individual, such an amazing human being with an amazing story. I've been wanting him on the show since I started the show, and luckily he had today off. He and his son Nick actually rode their bikes here from downtown, and so I got an hour out of his day to kind of talk to him about his trials and tribulations and his philosophies on life in the world. Again, just a shout out to Distill, DISTIL, sunglasses, distillunion.com, sunglasses, wallets, iPhone cases, keychains. They've been nice enough to give us a promotional code for Barely Legal Podcast. You want to go on their website, put in Barely Legal Podcast at checkout, and they'll give you a discount on those items. So thank you again to Distill. Chris, I am more than Bubba, more than Joe Redner Sr., more than anybody. You have been one of the people I've been looking to most to coming here. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. And I'll give a shout out to Distill as well. Those are some smoking cool glasses.
I hope if I could,
good on you.
If I could sell one of them for them, it's going to be a huge win for me.
Yeah, I might be getting one.
I'm an influencer. So, there's so many things that we could talk about. Our mutual love for acai bowls, your time as a professional pitcher for the Cubs and their farm team, our love and shared appreciation of live music. So much to go through, but let's start off with how we know each other. So my wife, Dina, and your wife, Lisa, are cousins, correct?
That is correct.
And I don't know when it was that I first met you, but my first memory of you was at Club Prana in Ybor City. And it was the night that Derek Jeter was there. Do you remember this night?
I do, but I've got you trumped. But
Okay. I just remember people were there, and there was whispers that Derek Jeter was coming in that night. And I think he walked in and he was kind of low key, but then the place blew up when a second individual walked in, and it was a young Chris Bryant who came in, and he was just dancing. You look like John Travolta or something. You're just pointing at everybody and dancing, and you got moves. I
got moves, man. It's part of my upbringing. Clair-Mel City, a shout out. You know, we kind of we just knew how to get down at a young age. So
thank you, because I would be so upset with myself if we got through this interview without me talking about the phenomenon of Clair-Mel. So I have never even heard of it until I met you, and you told me all these stories. And since I've done this podcast, Dave Decker, I met Rob Sexton over at Planet Retro over in St. Pete.
Sure.
Keith Olray over here at Microgroove. I know Brian Schaefer, who runs Skate Park at Tampa, is from Clair-Mel. So Clair-Mel seems to be this breeding ground for these strange beings that kind of just have personalities that are turned all the way up to 11. How do you account for that?
Well, it's just, lower mid class, it's almost like The Outsiders, the movie, The Outsiders.
Sure. Yeah.
Clair-Mel, you got to survive, from the time that you're born, getting raised in that environment. I mean, it was an awesome upbringing. Honestly, I didn't realize Clair-Mel was a little crazy until I went to high school, and my first girlfriend's parents were like, you can't go there after dark.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, because it was just a normal upbringing to me, but it was lower middle class.
When you come from the wrong side of the tracks, you don't know the wrong side of the tracks.
Agreed. And I mean, like I said, my upbringing was pretty awesome from all accounts, playing baseball and just having so many great friends that we ran that neighborhood. You know what I mean? We owned it.
Yeah.
And again, there was fights. There was tough people. And you learn to kind of get through life and really respect individuals, respect points of view, or you got beat up. You know what I mean? So that's just the nature of it.
Now, you were born there, or?
Yeah, I was born in MacDill Air Force Base.
Were you really?
I was.
I didn't
born
know
in
that.
MacDill Air Force Base. My mother was 17 years old.
Okay.
And this is I'm pretty certain this is 100% accurate. I was probably conceived on Unemployment Beach
Oh, wow.
right on Gandy Boulevard. When you
Okay.
cross over into St. Pete on Gandy, on that left-hand side, I'm pretty certain. I was born August 13th. It was probably my mom was young, probably the Thanksgiving holiday or Christmas break. And she met my father, who I really never had developed a huge relationship with. I've met him a few times in my life, but I'm pretty certain because my mother that's all I remember of her growing up, really. And other than just having her as my mother, in and out of my life, but just we always tended to go out there. There was
something about that
to that area,
right?
Maybe the drugs, maybe the alcohol, just day drinking. I don't know.
And growing up, did you live in the household with her? Were you raised by somebody else?
Or? I was raised by my grandmother.
Okay.
So from the time I got home from the hospital, my grandfather, my biological grandfather.
Tip your cap up a little bit so it doesn't keep. There you go.
Okay. So my biological grandfather was in the military.
Yeah.
He served in World War II.
What branch?
U.S. Army.
Okay.
Yep, from West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so he met my grandmother, who was a German during World War II. I'm sure a lot of servicemen married German women, in World War II at the end of that. So they had my mother, who was born in Germany. Then they moved back to the States, made, Clair-Mel a home. My grandfather, though, passed away about August 1st of 1975. I was born August 13th, 74.
Okay.
So just I think about that too quite often, how my first birthday must have been like a lot of sadness,
a lot bittersweet.
Yeah. So but yeah, my mother born and raised there, and then she was in and out of my life. My mother struggled with addiction her whole life.
Yeah.
And that's all I really knew of her.
Do you have any siblings?
I have a sister 10 years younger than me. We have different fathers.
Okay.
Shout out to Alicia Marsky.
Is she here locally, or where is she?
She is. Yeah. You've met her a few times, I think, at the beach.
Yeah, that's right.
But they live in her and her husband Carl. They have 3 children, 2 of their own. Cool story about Alicia is she had back-to-back twins.
Oh, wow.
Now the first set of twins, the little girl, Taylor passed away.
Oh, wow.
If they were born premature.
Sure.
But Tyler's doing well. He's about 16 years old now. But Christelle and Mariah are Carl's, her husband now. They're twins. And shout out to them. Happy birthday. Their birthday just passed recently. So, but yeah, and they live in Valrico, Florida, not far away. We see each other quite often.
Now, you got into baseball pretty early in life, right?
Yes.
You did the whole Little League circuit, all that deal?
I did. Really, it came to be when and I'll just tell a little bit of this here. I was a very insecure kid. Quite frankly, being raised by my grandmother, just me and her.
Sure.
My mother in and out of our lives. My grandfather had passed away. I was super shy. I really didn't have any direction in my life.
Right.
Now, my grandmother, our neighbors were in the military. A lot of MacDill people moved to Clair-Mel City. It was cheap housing.
Okay.
And it was built, we can look this up, but I think originally it was built for the military.
Oh, wow.
Community.
Like a little enclave.
Absolutely. For MacDill Air Force Base right there. Crosstown goes right through. There's an exit. 78th Street is the exit on the crosstown to get to Clair-Mel City. And so my grandmother met a man, Donald Eck. He was the father of Paul and his wife, Annie.
Okay.
They lived right next door to us. And then we would start seeing him at dinner, or at least I did. And then all of a sudden, dudes moving in to my house.
Oh, wow.
But it was the greatest thing to happen to me. I needed a father figure.
Direction.
Absolutely. And he was ex-military, was working for the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Department.
Oh, wow.
And just a hard-nosed dude, like straight line. And so he got me involved in baseball because a lot of my neighbors were playing Little League.
Right.
And we'd see them show up. It was always cool because back then kids would wear their uniforms to school.
Oh, for sure.
Game day. It was
your stirrups and all your.
Oh, yeah. So I used to just want to be part of that. And I had a great arm.
Yeah.
Like, shout out.
Did you know that early on, or is that something that developed over time? Or?
No, early on. I mean, just as a young kid, I would play in the neighborhoods, like just running around barefooted, and I was able to hold my own with older kids, whether it was hitting, acorns with tennis rackets or throwing the football or baseball. But one of my best friends growing up, Rodney Cribbs, his father, Rodney Rodney Sr. had coached Rodney in Little League. So he had encouraged, because he had seen me throwing with Rodney in the streets, like, hey, this kid could probably be pretty good at baseball. And then I started a little bit later at 9 years old. And and I got into baseball, and the rest was history. I found something, immediately. And I think that's what's so important for children, is that other than, video games today and all the TV and
some
stuff,
kind of identity or something.
Yeah, there's something that you're passionate about, because that became my life. And it really elevated me to a lot of good friends.
Where did you go to high school?
I went to high school at Brandon High.
Okay, and you pitched all 4 years there?
3 years, because junior high, we were 8th and 9th grade at Dowdell over there, and then Brandon 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
Right.
Yep.
Wow. And were you a starter? Were you a reliever? What were your...
Well, my first year, we had a team that was basically ranked number 4 in the nation.
Oh, wow.
The year before, they could have been national champions. They had played a team out of Altamont Springs at a baseball. Remember Baseball World?
Yeah.
What was it? Was it Baseball World?
Boardwalk and baseball.
Boardwalk and baseball.
Yeah.
So that was where the state tournaments were.
Right.
So that next year, we had just a team that was stacked. The guy you may have heard, Danny Graves, went to University of Miami. And on to play for the Cincinnati Reds, and I believe he's...
How old are you? We're a couple years apart, I think.
I'm 45. I'll be 46 in a month.
Okay, so we're 1 year. Yeah, in December I'll be 45. So we're right at about a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I right around the time we were in high school, like A-Rod was coming out of, was it South Florida?
Oh yeah, he was the same year I was drafted.
Yeah, and then we had a guy, was it Mike D'Amico? No, Jeff D'Amico.
Jeff D'Amico, Northeast High School.
Yeah, when I was at Northeast High School.
I played with him.
Yeah,
in a lot of tournaments.
So anyway, yeah, there's a lot of talent coming out and going pro at that time.
And let me tell you a story too, real quick. You mentioned Alex Rodriguez.
Sure.
So my senior year, I made this all-star team, the FACA. It's like the Firefighters of America, something. And it was in Sebring. So you had an East, West, North, South team. And I was on the West team, obviously, with a lot of Jeff D'Amico was on the team. Actually, Jeff, myself, and a kid, Troy Carrasco, who was a lefty at Jesuit, super stud lefty. We pitched the first game that year, but before that game, you go up to Sebring. We all drove up there, and it's like a 3-day weekend. It's a tournament, and we're at this beautiful old school hotel. And I remember the year before playing in this tournament with Alex Rodriguez when he was in 11th grade.
Right.
It was just kind of a beanpole skinny guy, but super good. And then he just transformed, and he was the number 1 overall prospect in the country. Nobody could. Miami Westminster. So I hadn't seen him in over a year. I walk into Sebring, and when you talk about somebody who's going to be a future star, and there's like an aura, like this dude was so good looking, like 6'3", just ripped up, and just there was an
star power.
Yeah, there was something different about Rodriguez. And I remember we had like a dinner that night where they introduced everybody and gave you your award and your medal. And that night he's staying like just catty corner to my room. I'm staying with this kid from Jesuit, not Troy, but a second baseman. I can't remember his name. But we end up going to Alex's room, and we're having pizza and Sports Center's on. And I'm sitting next to Rodriguez on the bed, and all of a sudden they shows the draft special. The draft's in a week.
Right.
And this is like the last showcase.
Sure.
Surprised he even played in that game, because a lot of people get scared about getting hurt
injure
or
themselves
something.
or whatever.
But all of a sudden, Peter Gammons is on, and it shows, this is back when Cal Ripken was playing, 93. It shows Cal Ripken on this special, and then all of a sudden it shows Rodriguez kind of being blended in. And then I'm looking at this guy, and there's this like 30-minute specials on this person next to me.
Did he have an ego, or was he pretty humble?
There was a little of an ego. Who wouldn't have? I had an ego, and I wasn't near that guy.
Yeah.
You just develop that when everybody's
it kind of helps you, right? I mean, if you're especially as a pitcher, you
have to have an ego. You have to have a chip. The people that succeed, honestly, and I never really cared. I don't think I'd carried an ego off the field, even though there was probably some part of it, the way I handled girls and that part of things, I'm sure was very egotistical. But you got to have a chip on your shoulder. You won't be successful.
Now, did you get drafted right out of high school, or
I did?
Okay, so what year was that?
93.
93, and what round did you go? Eighth round.
That's
and
right.
Who did you go to?
To the Chicago Cubs.
Were you just over the moon excited?
I was. It was a dream come true. But when I tell you this, and this is the truth, man, it's all kind of surreal.
Yeah.
Like I was raised by my grandparents. you got to understand, Tampa was a breeding ground for professional athletes, especially black professional athletes. And like, those were my idols growing up. The Dwight Goodens, the Gary Sheffields, people you probably never heard of, Floyd Yeomans, who was a major leaguer from Hillsborough High, Vance Lovelace. I mean, these dudes were just these incredible athletes that I admired. I just wanted to say that because that's part of the Clair-Mel mystique as well. I mean, it was just such multicultural, and you just friends from all different backgrounds. And so seeing Dwight Gooden, Gary Sheffield, and actually being around that, like Belmont Heights, and going to those games and seeing their Corvettes and his Porsche, Dwight Gooden's Porsche, those are the things you dreamed about.
Those are the things.
So when I got drafted, the mistake I made, as I go back and being super immature, was thinking that I had made it.
Yeah.
And that's just
the worst way you can think about it. Yeah.
Well, you can, because you get to the first spring training and there's 1,000 people,
right?
1,000, but a couple hundred guys that are just like you.
Yeah.
Some of them are better because they get a lot more money.
Right.
So, and that's kind of what baseball turns into at that point. What's your bonus?
Yeah.
You got $1 million, you're going to be around for a while. They're going to put a lot of time into you. I got a pretty good bonus, and so I got some attention for a few years for sure.
Now I know, and we'll get to this in a few minutes, but faith has become a big part of your life. But at that time, was faith a part of your life?
Yes and no.
Well, what position did it have in your life? How did you?
Well, I believed in a higher power. I believed in Jesus Christ. And that really, if we went back, that stemmed from being raised in Clair-Mel City and being raised by some incredible human beings, not just my family, but incredible men. The Al Molinas, the Cal Libels, the Carlos Semilians, the Bill Rice. Rest in peace. Bill just recently passed away. And these men, a couple of them had their own children, but the other ones didn't. And we were their life. And most of them were believers, and they would take these kids on, we'd stay the night at their house on Saturday night and watch and go to movies or wrestle and then go to church in the morning. They poured their faith in us. And that's things that I looked at, men that had no, they didn't have to deal with kids.
Yeah.
But that was their full-time job.
Yeah.
Is making sure that we practiced every single day. We found faith, and that was an amazing time. So that, and girlfriends in high school were Catholic,
right.
We'd go to a nativity. And so I believed in God. I'd put it there, but you don't practice it.
Yeah.
It's just a religion at that point in time.
Now, when you were the Cubs, where did you go? What farm teams were you on? How did that work out?
Well, the cool thing is, you get drafted. I went drafted high enough, and after you sign, they fly you to Chicago, Illinois.
Who was coaching Chicago at that time?
That year, it might have been Jim Riggleman.
Okay. Who was on the team around that time?
Well, I can remember Ryan Sandberg, obviously, Andre Dawson, Randy Myers, big lefty reliever, super crazy guy with stun guns and whips in his locker. Just stuff you couldn't do today. Yeah. I mean, guns, like crazy stuff. Back when they smoked in there with Mark Grace, don't want to throw him under the bus, but smoking cigarettes in the clubhouse. That's 93.
Yeah.
That's not too long ago. Yeah. But just these people you idolized growing up, and getting a chance to go to Chicago and see these guys throw a bullpen, and just, before I went off to Arizona for like what they call just a mini camp.
Sure.
But then my first year was Huntington, West Virginia.
Oh, wow.
Where Marshall University's at. And
what was your pitch? What tools did you have in your toolbox?
Well, I think any pitcher will tell you if they're they know what they're talking about. The fastball is going to be your primary pitch. I mean,
everybody's got to have that.
You got to be able to locate that pitch, and that's going to be your bread and butter. Being able to locate that, and that's going to set up other pitches. Some guys, like you look at a Mariano Rivera's got a cut fastball that he's known for, and that slider. And they look very similar, but just different planes and different velocity. Yeah. So, but I threw a fastball, curveball, slurve, a changeup.
What's a slurve?
A slurve is in between a slider and a curveball. Okay. Where a curveball is going to be more of a 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock bite. A slurve is going to be more of like a 10 to 5.
Yeah.
Or 10 to 4.
Now, pitchers today versus pitchers back then, has there been a big evolution as far as what they're capable of? Or
Absolutely. And that's why there's an evolution in arm injuries.
Yeah.
You got kids now, I'm going to these tournaments with 10 U's and they got guns in the stands. Dads, hey, he's throwing 60 or he's throwing 55. And it's like, dude, no.
Yeah, you're going to
because that's all. And they're playing all these tournaments and for different teams. And
well, our nephew, is he your,
he's a cousin.
Cousin to you, nephew to me, John Kilichowski.
I think I've mistaked by saying nephew a few times.
We just call him, with all these Italians, you just call him whatever. You're probably right. But, we got to witness his kind of career through Vanderbilt and then the Cardinals. And it's true because, I never had it. I was a kid, they stuck out in right field just to pick daisies all day long. But I remember we would play, I think, a Thursday night game and a Saturday morning game. And that was it. And the season was like 4 months or something like that.
Yeah.
And with John growing up, it was like the Father's Day tournament, the Mother's Day tournament, the Easter tournament, the Hall of Fame League, the da-da-da.
It's all about Benjamins, man.
Oh, they can make a lot of money off of it. But
they do make a lot of money off
but the pitch count that these kids have on their arms by the point that they're even going to, the pros is like double, triple, whatever it had been, historically.
Well, I threw a lot too. I mean, honestly, we in Little League back when I played, we played year round. Basically, there was those months where we took off.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I threw, man, you throw bullpens, and I think that helps develop arm strength, but we threw a lot of fastballs. I didn't really throw it. And you can still, I think there's scientific proof that curveballs thrown correctly don't really hurt your arm. But you'll lose velocity over time throwing more curveballs. The fastball is what's going to develop your velocity. And the more kids throw fastballs early in their life, the harder they'll eventually throw. If you got a kid who's throwing curveballs nonstop, he's probably not going to develop into, a power pitcher, a hard thrower.
How long did you pitch for the Cubs?
I pitched from 93. I got drafted, so a short season until 98. And then I played a year of independent ball with Fargo Moorhead, which was interesting out in Minnesota.
And Minnesota. So tell me about the end of your career pitching. How did that come about?
Well, that's a long part too. I don't, but the end of it, you got to think, like I told you before, my dreams became true.
Sure.
But part of my faith now stems from what happened after I got drafted. And part of my story and my testimony is when I got home, like you got to understand, like baseball for me growing up was just something I did. And there's coaches that steered you to it and you had commitments and you just played. Fast forward to becoming a professional. Now it's up to you to work out and the Cubs at that point, and nothing but love for them, but they weren't fully invested in like minor league ball. There were a lot of my other friends were going to instructional leagues in the off season, and they really had a thumb on you. Those other organizations, maybe the Angels, Yankees, the Cubs kind of gave you a big thick book and said, "Hey, have fun. We'll see you in March."
Yeah.
And for somebody like me, that didn't work. And again, that's on me more than I'm not putting a finger on anybody. But for me, I came home, I had all this free time, had a lot of money, and I never did drugs, never really drank in high school at all. I always took Mountain Dews to parties. That's when things started kind of going to left field. Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, shout out to the Chronic. That was in my player. I had a brand new car, and first it started with just some weed, and then it opens up for people like me. I come from my father, from all indications, was a heavy user. My mother died from her addiction. So when I came home for baseball, instead of working at my craft and hitting the gym and running and doing the things that, let me tell you, I had the talent to be a major league player. I don't know if I would have been a superstar, but I would have been a guy who probably played 5 to 8 years and maybe had a relief, occasional spot start. I had that talent. I got people out when I was in the zone, but for the most part, when I came home, I didn't work at it. And over time, it catches up to you. And, every year there's a draft in June.
Yeah.
Every year there's left-handed pitchers. And just so happens that it might have been 97, 98. Don't quote me. It's been a bit. But they drafted about 4 lefties in the top 10 rounds.
Yeah.
So, it's that uncomfortable conversation, Josh, where, you pitch a game, you come into the locker room, hey, coach wants to see you. and I got demoted already. And coach was like, hey, this is the worst thing a coach has to do.
Yeah.
But we're going to release you from your contract. And, and that's when, it's like, okay.
Was there depression? Was there, how did that hit you?
Yeah. You at first, not really. I did what I always did. I was like, hell yeah, I'll go home. I'll party with my friends. There's extended adolescence.
Yeah.
You know me. People who may know me right now and live with me day to day. I'm 46, 45, going on like 13 or 14. I've got a
you sell
big
yourself
heart.
short.
I do, but my point is I've got a maturity level and I enjoy life.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to sell myself short. Like, listen, I'm successful. I do good things and we'll talk some about those. But ultimately, that's how I got by.
Yeah.
That spirit of just being able to kind of bounce back. But it hurt.
Yeah.
Coming home, seeing that disappointment. My grandparents invested so much into me, especially my grandfather, who wasn't my blood. There was disappointment, so now here's their grandson who doesn't have anything to go to. What are you going to do in life? And then the conversation goes from, hey, Chris, how's baseball? And man, you play pro ball. And now it's like, are you, what's going on now? What do you plan on doing? And those are tough conversations for a 23-year-old to start having.
When did you meet your wife?
Ooh, Lisa. So Lisa came in the perfect storm. And I'll tell you now, it was a God thing, period, and point blank, period. And exclamation point, any ending there. Met her probably in 1999, 2000, I think 2000.
So you were already out of baseball by that
I was
point.
out of baseball, but still, here's the kicker. I was still going to these tryouts.
Yeah.
You still want to
hold out that dream, yeah.
But it's not even that. It's more of floating that, like, you can't let go.
Yeah.
It's your identity.
Yeah.
And I was two people. I was Chris, the baseball player, and Chris, the professional partier.
Yeah.
I was a life of a party, man.
Yeah.
I think Chuck Wagon and his buddy Jimmy, they labeled me Category 5, Cat 5, because I was a Miami Hurricane fan.
Yeah.
So
did
Cat
you know them
5,
back then?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but
Now,
later in life,
when did you know the
Cat
Henderson
5.
brothers?
Well,
Did that come later? Yeah,
it does.
give me
But
the order.
let's stick. I knew the Henderson. I knew Greg before his other brothers, but I met Lisa in like 2000. She was a beer tub girl at Barnacles in
Barnacles,
in
man.
Brandon,
That place-
owned by John Smoltz, one of the Braves
Yeah,
pitchers,
sure,
and
yeah.
some people. So me and my friends would frequent there. I love beer.
Yeah.
I love girls, and I can honestly remember the exact. It's almost like the photographic memory, but walking through the front door, it's about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and just on the right hand side, there's this like long little beer tub there, and she was just.
I had no
cutest
idea
little
Lisa
thing.
was a beer tub girl.
Yeah.
And Barnacles.
Yeah, go figure,
Yeah,
right? You find an angel in a place like that.
That's right.
But she was there, and we kind of hit it off, and just she was pretty outgoing at that point.
What
in
an
time.
amazing, dynamic woman, strong human being. She in her life is just, the both of you have gone through so much and have, in many ways, your strength has helped the other one get through. But when you say that she was, from God, I definitely understand. And that resonates with me because you guys have been at your strongest points at just the right time for each other in your life. And I think that's how you guys have gotten through some of the stuff that you've gotten through. Anyway, I don't mean to hijack your story.
No, you're fine though, but you're right. And that's a good observation. And that's right. Iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
And I've put her through a bunch of things, but ultimately, meeting her, you got to think, I got released from the Cubs. This is 97, 98, 99. My grandfather dies. 2000, late 99, my grandmother dies.
Yeah.
Then my mother dies on one of Lisa and my first dates.
Oh my God.
So we go to Gasparilla in 2000 with some of our friends. It was one of our first times ever really hanging out, but I was an animal back then, man. And it was day drinking that never worked well for me.
Sure.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. I was a sprinter.
A sprinter.
So, but my mother that day passed away right not far. There's a big church right there on is it Platt? There's a big AA meeting there now too on Saturday nights.
Not the Greek one.
No, it's right there on. Oh my Lord! It's almost to the Bayshore on the right-hand side.
Yeah. Okay. I know what you're talking about.
There's a Presbyterian, a big old Presbyterian.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So right across the street from there, I think it might be Gordon Street.
Uh-huh.
My mother died right there in a house there. Oh, she overdosed that same day of that Gasparilla.
Oh, man.
So as Lisa and me are driving out with some friends to Gasparilla, little do I know at that point in time, my mom, she's dying away, from her addiction. And me and her at that time, that was a big burden because we weren't doing well because she had done some pretty shady things late in my grandmother's life and she was terminally ill.
Right.
And, I'd booted her out that Christmas a month and a half before that from my aunt's house for Christmas dinner because of some of those things.
Yeah.
And you can't take that stuff back. Fast forward to my own stuff that we might get into a little bit. And, I do have regrets for the way, because I didn't know. I wasn't a full-blown addict at that time. I was a substance abuser, enjoying life and being able to drink and party, but still kind of maintain some normal behaviors. But we know, or you may not know, but addiction's a progressive illness. Well, it ends up catching up to you.
So, I wanted to talk with you about this, but I want to be respectful of it. And I know that you're very, this is a big part of your life now because you help other people. Amen. And so you've put a lot of thought into the proper way to talk about it and not to glorify things and not to make it seem like it's, an ideal situation. So I want to be respectful, but I want to talk to you a little bit about it. At some point you've discussed that you used, and at some point it started to become problematic for you.
Oh, absolutely.
And how did that look? What did that look like?
Well, yeah, and like I says, part of recovery too, and you learn because this could be like the stories I have, the things I've experienced are comical.
I mean, you've told me
and
that.
I would
every time we walk from a concert at Mid-Florida Atlantic or whatever, you run into a whole crew of people that leads to you telling me about 4 or 5 stories about you being in back rooms with bands or you being, all this other stuff. And it's so funny because the Chris I know and the Chris you tell me about are just worlds apart from each other. But
they are. And you just get more mature in the way that you handle things. And again, where I'm at in life, one thing that you don't want to glorify use to make it sound fun to people, especially if my nieces or nephews ever hear this, because we do a lot for them too, trying to steer them away from that. Because this world right now is designed to just
take you to a dark place. Yeah.
I've known 2 people in the past 14 months that have jumped off the Skyway Bridge.
Yeah.
It used to be like a joke.
Yeah.
Like me and my friends like, hey, I'm going to make you drive the Skyway and jump off. But now that's not too funny to me anymore because I've known people.
Well, you've had a lot of suicide and
absolutely.
Young.
So there's this dark underworld. And the Bible tells us it's not about flesh and blood. It's about spirits and principalities. And you look at the world today, you see these things. We're not at war with people. We're at war with these underworlds, these spirits, these dark things that are destined from hell. But, what I'm getting at with my not to get off track on that, but for me, like I said, after I got drafted, partying became a lifestyle for me. Right. It was fun. Yeah. I was never a user that was a depressed user. I was a happy user.
Yeah.
If I'm happy, if I closed some loans, if I struck out 10 guys and threw a 2-hitter, let's hit that. Ooh, let's go hit the bar, chase some women, and let's have a blast. Yeah. Let's keep this thing going. Yeah. Well, come to find out, again, it's progressive. Every addiction, everybody who's addicted starts out as substance abusers. We know substance abusers. There's people in this world that can function and pound 12 packs, maybe do an 8-ball of Coke on a Friday night and still go to bed Saturday and Sunday and live a productive life. Yeah. It's not probably a very good life if that's what you're doing later in life. You're probably
you got other things, right? Yeah.
But I'm thankful for that. So as my addiction progressed, again, after I got released from baseball, all the partying, you got to understand, I've tried that first year after I got drafted, smoked marijuana. I did acid, shrooms, cocaine, what's the other
crack,
stuff?
meth, heroin.
No, never did that yet. That came, not heroin, but, later in life as that addiction progresses,
you're trying to top the last day. You can't get as high as you got last time.
And that's the truth. Yeah. And that's what you're ultimately chasing. And then where the partying comes in, now that depression.
Now you're just trying to even out or.
you're trying to mask that pain that my life had become.
Right.
So even though as I met Lisa and I was starting to peak out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Was she aware of it at the time? Or?
She thought I smoked marijuana, which is acceptable to a lot of people. But I was lying. I had already started experimenting with crack and going in that dark world. And it was just like I said, what happens is cocaine runs out at a party. And somebody's got that. And guess what? That where I grew up in Clair-Mel City, where baseball elevated me. Now Clair-Mel, this wonderful place I had great memories, became some of the darkest memories of my life.
Right.
Because now a lot of the kids I grew up and played baseball with were dope boys.
Okay.
Some of them, I shouldn't say a lot. And some of them wouldn't sell to me, but some of them would.
Yeah.
So I knew these people. I wasn't one of these guys who could just drive up into a middle of a neighborhood that I didn't know. I was scared of cops. I was scared of getting arrested. But I was a guy that would go to a house, knew people, and then I could call and have it delivered. But it got bad, and Lisa would hide it. And underneath all that fun and coolness, she was privately dealing with an out of control human being that she loved. But it was dark. And again,
when did you hit bottom? What was bottom, if you care to talk about it?
Well, absolutely. So you fast forward, we get married, and that's what a lot of addicts make the mistake about. We think that situations are going to change us.
Yeah.
When it actually comes from within.
Right.
So, Lisa and I decided to get married. And in my mind, that's what I wanted in life. I wanted to be a dad. I didn't have a father growing up. I had my grandfather, not my biological.
Sure.
But I wanted to be a father. I loved children my whole life. You see how I am with kids today.
But not to cut you off, but you were talking a few minutes ago about these amazing men in your life. And what I love so much about that story is you have so become that man in other people's lives.
Sure.
So, not to get off topic here, but we're going to get there eventually
But I love that.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I love children.
Yeah.
Just because I was wounded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was hurt.
Yeah.
By not having a mom and wondering why she didn't want to be with me. So Lisa and I decided to get married. Well, guess what? That's going to change me.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, it's still hard. It's funny, but it's hard to watch our wedding video. It was a great wedding.
Yeah. I remember that wedding. Where was I? I was there. Was it at the Hard Rock or?
It was at the Hard Rock.
Yeah, yeah.
Night before and this is a funny story. And night before we have, the party and the aunts and uncles. And shout out to Uncle Norm and them because and your in-laws, Uncle John. I'm pretty sure I believe that they paid for our rehearsal dinner. And you want to talk about Mac Daddy and how blessed we were. It's poolside Hard Rock.
Yeah.
All the open bar, Coronas and Heinekens, fajita bar.
Yeah.
And for a guy like me, man, I got started, and I'm in that mode, Cat 5.
Yeah.
So we all have our separate rooms, right? And we all go to our rooms that night. And Lisa, obviously we're not together. So I've got me and my friends and we're partying. Like I'm telling you, now that you watch The Hangover, I look back, it was very similar.
Yeah.
Because I wake up the next morning and this is the funniest thing ever. As I wake up with a horrible headache, like what happened? This is my wedding day.
Yeah.
So I get up. My buddy Eric, his wife Roxanne's next to me, face down. We just had a fun time. But they're sleeping still. But there's down, like a pillow fight had gone on. Literally in the room, there's like this thick air, and there's down floating around. And I look over, and the mini bar is open. There's a Pepsi or a Coke in there. There's Cristal, Dom Perignon, all these things opened. And I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
What do I do?
Yeah.
I call downstairs. I'm like, hypothetically speaking, if the mini bar only has a Pepsi or a Coke in it,
how much money do I owe you?
It was like $875.
Oh, Lord.
Shout out to Chuck Waygood because he didn't want me. He was there and we were downstairs later. And that's when it all came to me because Jen Basiglio had reached out like, dude, we got to fix this. And I'm like, okay. And then Chuck ended up just flipping that bill, but I ended up paying him back. Yeah. But he covered that for right there just to kind of keep
put
going,
a Band-Aid on it. Yeah.
Starting to drink, there. And, but ultimately watching that video because we had an awesome wedding.
Yeah.
But I just continued that other night and I'm break dancing. And I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe that's where the whole Ice Ice Baby started. And that's where the sunglasses at the wedding started. And it was it was an awesome get together. And thankfully we're still together. But I thought Lisa and myself getting married was going to change me.
Right.
And it didn't. I started falling back into it. And then we find out a year later, or not even a year later, but she comes to my work, hey, I'm pregnant. Oh my God, I'm going to be a father.
Yeah.
And so many addicts feel this way. Like, this is going to change
be what does
me.
it. Yeah.
It's not me actually getting help and figuring out why I'm using to the extremes I'm using. It's these things. A baby's going to save me.
Yeah.
And guess what? The baby did save me because it made Lisa's,
she now had a priority that was above you.
And I tell you what, you don't get in between that woman
Mom
and her child and any mother and a child. And ultimately falling back into that darkness, Lisa, you want to talk about some crazy stuff is on a bender for a day or two. You come home in our neighborhood. We all knew each other, Valhalla. You remember that neighborhood, townhome neighborhood? Come home at like 5:36. I'd say about 7:38 because people were out doing stuff. And ultimately, all my stuff, literally all my stuff was in the driveway.
Oh, man.
Like golf clubs, hurricane memorabilia, clothes. She wasn't having it anymore.
Yeah.
That was the greatest thing because it took me about a year and a half from that moment to hit a rock bottom. Because at first it's like, you don't look within. It's like, screw
it's
you.
Her problem. It's her
You're
thing.
messing this up. And I'm going to be on my own. And guess what? You're on your own now. I don't have to listen to her little, when I start using the calls, because she would call me relentlessly. Lisa would chase me out of these houses. And we had, you want to talk about Clair-Mel City? We had high speed chases through Clair-Mel City, through red lights, because I wasn't done and she wanted me to be done. Yeah. And here's this girl, like just.
And if you knew Lisa, I mean, she's such a, good, that's not the life that she really came from. That's not the life that she lived. And, but she was, she loved me. Yeah. And she saw this great human being that 20% of the time, or maybe 40% of the time, or I'd say 60. And then 40% of the time I was just messed up. Yeah. And she would, just please don't drink today and this and that. It's such a hard thing as a family member or a spouse of an addict or a substance abuser. Cause, I've had discussions with you about my parents and their issues with alcohol. And they're oftentimes the most empathetic people, the biggest hearted, earnest people in the world, but they almost can't carry that burden. So they medicate, but you run into this dynamic where you're dealing with a person that is such a beautiful person that just has this part of them that you can't rectify it. You can't put them all the way out. You can't bring them all the way in. They just occupy this kind of territory in the middle that it's very unsettling. It is. And you're an enabler. Yeah. And that's my grandmother enabled my mother. I witnessed my mother come through time and time again with these crazy stories. And my grandmother, just to kind of get her the hell away, would give her money and help her out. And, but Lisa really wasn't an enabler, Lisa, but she was madly in love with me. But fast forward to Nicholas being here. And that year and a half, from after she kicked me out. Was that right from his birth? Was that like the first year and a half of his life, or? Yeah, roughly, yeah. Like I said, I loved Nick with all my heart. I was so incredibly happy to be a dad. Was this around the time that you were working with Norman at his office? Or? Absolutely. Yeah. That was in the midst of it all. Because I remember, so my cousin by marriage too, Lisa's brother Norman was a dentist over here in Tampa, and you were working with him. I was going to him at the time, and I remember you'd had like a motorcycle accident. You were living at the Salvation Army, or but that's fast forwarding. Okay, sorry. No, you're fine. I want to hear. When the market
for mortgages, I was a mortgage broker.
So, yeah,
Slow down.
we
Norm
skipped that
was
part.
so awesome. Nick was born. He was like, listen, I'm having trouble keeping. No, he had broken up with his fiance at that time. Him and Penny
yeah.
had broken up, and she was helping him, and that was uncomfortable to keep doing that. So, dude, I'll tell you right now, hands down, greatest dental assistant ever was this guy right here.
I would love it.
Technically the worst ever. Like, I wasn't doing x-rays, but people hate the dentist.
Yeah.
You come in there, I have a conversation
You guys
with
he had the Coldplay playlist
Oh,
going.
yeah.
It was
Oh,
the
yeah.
best.
But, I would talk to people and just take
I paid him
them
with a skateboard to do like a.
Is that the one that Nick was in that picture with?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. We still have it, Nick.
I bought it from Brian Schaefer at.
That's so awesome. I remember you actually commented way back then. And a pong
board. Yeah.
Pong pusher.
Yeah.
You said, I was like, okay,
I think it was a girl skateboards or something. Yeah.
But helping out with Norm, but that, again, that's being a dental assistant, he just helped me out there, but that was still part of my addiction.
Yeah.
So, and again, not to bounce around for everybody, let's circle back here. So I'm kicked out of the house, working with Norm though, still, and living with one of my buddies. But my addiction it caught fire.
It was still going on at that time.
Oh, but it was the worst ever. Now I didn't have a wife and a kid to go back to.
I
had nobody
nothing
looking.
to more yourself to. Yeah.
There was I was on death's doorstop.
Yeah.
I mean, I had met a woman, God bless her. I hope she's doing well at this point in time, but married with kids and worked at this nursing home that I was managing, doing some things there for some different accounts and turned her on to drugs and alcohol. And she became worse than I was.
Oh, no.
And, but it also helped bring me to a point where, I had to get help because we had used and that room I rented out from my buddy became like this drug den, of just darkness. And, with that addiction, it's just, you're chasing it and it's just evil. And, me and this girl ended up selling, listen to this, and this isn't to glorify, but just tells you where this addiction leads is you don't have a lot of money.
Right.
My drug of choice is pretty easy to blow through tons of money.
Yeah.
Well, we take her paid in full Honda Accord to a dealership up there on Bears Avenue in Nebraska, and we sell her car for $9,800.
Uh-huh.
So we go to Amscott,
yeah,
cash this check, and literally go back to the dope hole. And I'll tell you, the one time I thought I was going to die, and you wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
Well, when you're at Amscott with this check and you just sold a car, what's going through your mind right then?
Drugs.
Are you thinking about
awesome.
like this is so you're in a positive state of mind?
Absolutely.
You're not thinking, God, I'm circling the drain, just making horrible
not
decisions.
At that point.
Yeah,
that's not there because you want to get that. You're in that mode now. It's a cycle.
Yeah,
the addiction is a cycle. You have use. Being high, then you have the come down, you have the regret, you have that moment of trying that clarity from them, like, is this?
Yeah.
And then that clock strikes 12 to use again, and that's where so many of us get caught in that cycle.
Yeah.
So heck no, we were like, man, I just like, whoa, we're going to be able to do this for a while, but fast forward 3.5 days later, my knee had swelled up. I'm on this bed of just not sleeping and just but when we got back to the dope hole over in Clair-Mel, I had all this money in my shoes. You're not going to carry this wad of $9,300 because you have to pay Amscott something. And then as I'm there, it's like 2:00 in the morning. I look down, there's all these dope boys around that, I'm sure they would kill for $9,300.
Yeah.
They're delivering drugs to me. But I look down and I can see all these $100 bills just peeling out of
sticking out of your shoes.
And I just thought to myself, I dug them in and I told her we had to go. But fast forward 3 days later and we're still up.
Yeah.
And I remember just being on the bed and I was tapped out.
Yeah.
And she was still using, like in the bathroom. And I just looked at her and I looked at myself and I knew I needed help. And I broke down a little bit there. And I had some other moments previously where I was crying and opening the Bible and reaching out to people to help. And I remember a few days later, I reached out to a gentleman you may have saw. I did a little podcast with him a while ago at his little place. He's a mentor of mine now, Charles Young. He had steered me in all different directions. A very godly man.
Yeah.
And he was like, Chris, I don't know what to tell you, man. He goes, I don't know addiction, but I have a guy. And he introduced me to somebody, George Wood, part of the Timothy Initiative. And that's where that positive side started to come back.
Remind me before we end to talk to you a little bit about the Timothy Initiative and how much you've helped me and one of my clients currently, but we'll
sure.
Get back
and that steered me into,
So what year are we talking?
This is okay. Nick was born in 2007. So this was the end of 2009. How
long have you been sober?
Me now?
Yeah.
I've been sober since March 26, 2011.
Oh, wow.
So over 9 years, almost 10 years.
So next March is 10 years.
That's right.
That's awesome.
So, but I started getting into that recovery thing. I didn't want it anymore. I knew that I didn't want to feel that way, even though I had some hiccups. So when I went to Timothy Initiative,
it's very rarely a straight path to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it was one of these recovery houses, ministry, Jesus Christ, which is still active, and just showing you the love of Jesus and to steer men into a different way of life. And it's grown quite a bit since I've
not only has it grown, but you've really risen kind of to the top as leadership in some ways, haven't you?
I wouldn't say, I'm on the board.
Yeah.
I've done a lot. I'd like to be bigger part of it today, but where I'm living and just with a lot that goes on with life, man, being a dad and a husband, I'm not as connected as I would love to be. But I've done a lot of mentorship there over the years, but I'd say today, from maybe 4 years ago, I'm probably not as involved as I have been.
Right.
Even though I'm still in contact. We attend board meetings.
You still do way more than most people do.
Yeah.
Every holiday, Chris is serving food to the homeless and addicts. He's
Salvation Army.
Yeah, Salvation Army. I mean, so your bad day is most people's good day. So don't.
Well, yeah, and but that all started with just getting and figuring things out in my life, and just knowing that it's not events. It wasn't a marriage. It wasn't a child. It comes with getting a sponsor.
Right.
And there's some people who can go to meetings and get sober. I wasn't one of those guys. I had to go to a rehabilitation center.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Salvation Army.
Yeah.
Because at TI early on, I couldn't stay sober. I got
Yeah.
a job, and then they're finally like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. You can't stay here anymore. I can either get you into the Sal, or I can you can go back to what you were doing. And I was so close to going back, and I'll tell you, the power of prayer and testimony is so important, because they prayed over me, and one of my friends, Danny Mars, gave me a huge testimony about his time in the Salvation Army, because my thought of the Salvation Army at that point was, I'm going to go live under an overpass in tents, and I'm Chris Bryant.
Yeah.
I can't be doing that. Here's crackhead Chris, who can't keep his life in order, and that's what so many addicts do, though. It's like they're in control. I'm willing to get help, but I'm not willing to do that. And that's always a disaster.
Yeah.
But his story to me said, man, the Sal was awesome. This is what it'll do. And, ultimately I listened, and the rest is history. I went to the Sal and got sober.
So one of the things that I think about, and I wanted to ask you, and I'm sure everybody's story is different, but after you've got a good period of sobriety under your belt, are you still fearful of going back there? Is that something that occurs to you? Do you think about that at all?
Absolutely. Here's the craziest thing, man. I wish I was still up to speed with that big book like I was early on.
Yeah.
But this will probably be crazy to you, but using for people like me isn't a choice.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, what do you mean? It's your choice to pick up. If I want to go get high right now or drink, guess what? You had to make that. It was a decision before that. It was a choice.
Yeah.
And the minute I make a decision that I've got this, and that I don't have a higher power that's helping me, and my willpower is strong enough, you're done. You're emptied out, and you're going to fall. So I do have a healthy fear. Now, do I think about drinking or getting high today? No, but it's the little things that you struggle with. I struggle with every man's struggle. Women, I'm married to a beautiful wife, and I don't sit there and chase women or want to be with them, but you have those thoughts at times, whether it's pornography that drips into a lot of men.
Mhm.
Facebook is horrible now
Yeah,
in a lot of ways,
yeah.
where, being in our family at times, at the beach with beautiful women,
that's true.
it's
And
a struggle.
There's one thing specifically, and again, I want
Not to be creepy. I'm not thinking of people's wives,
No,
but
yeah.
point being, you're at the beach and
sure.
you're around other beautiful women. It's like, you're a man,
Yeah.
and it's just, but those are the struggles we have that you've got to kind of stay on top of.
So again, and I want to be very respectful of this, but we lost Lisa's brother Norman a couple years ago to suicide.
That's right.
And he was another beautiful human being. He was a colorful, robust person who was just so much fun to be around.
That's
and
right.
He played such a big role in your life and such a big role in her brother's life. And when that happened, I still remember it was the viewing, and we were at the funeral home, and I looked over at you, and you just had this look on your face, and it was sadness, but it was appreciation, because you were sad, but I could tell that you were exactly what Lisa needed at that moment. It was almost as though everything you had been through led you up to that moment to be finally for her what she had been to so many other people.
Yeah.
Did that resonate with you? Did you think about that at the time?
I did. And that was, I think I lost my grandparents.
Yeah.
And what did I have to mask?
Yeah. Yeah.
Drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
So Norman's death was the biggest loss of my entire life. Like, it'll make me tear up now. And, I cried so much when that happened that literally I wondered, where do tears come from? Like, how can in my head,
are they finite?
You get migraines.
Yeah.
Like, how does my brain, is my brain leak? Is my brain like dry right now? Because how am I producing? And then seeing her broken. And what a lot of people don't understand is Lisa is the one who found Norman too, you know? And here's where I'm thankful for my drug addiction. For a lot of us who have drugs and alcohol to mask that depression and to help us get by, I can't imagine dealing with that depression with nothing. Yeah. And that's what Norm did. It happened quick. It was on. So we started seeing changes in him, and he never did drug. He'll drink a beer here and there, but I can recall one time that I saw Norman drunk, and it was when the University of Florida with Tim Tebow won their first national championship. We went and picked him up over in off Beta Bay. There was this like bar right there around that little roundabout when you get off the crosstown. And he was just beyond the moon and just laughing and funny, but he never really drank. So that home that he lived in where he took his own life, became this dark place for him. He got out, but even in his letters, he talked about that. It was a very tough time. And I do think personally that drugs had a little bit to do with it, because I think he suffered for years from depression, just from a lot of the conversations he had with the family, his fears and his concerns.
Well, they lost their mother at an early age, and their families had their own travails.
And he put a lot of faith in a lot of people, and he just had these
he loves his family so much, such an empathetic and loving, and such a big cheerleader in his family. And some of the things that happen in families, I think a lot of families, he, had an impact on him.
Absolutely. And he just, started taking one of these sleeping Ambien. Yeah. And he had told me, and he had taken a few, and I'll tell you part of my drug history, trying to come down off of cocaine, I did Ambien. Yeah. Just to try to sleep. Yeah. And it was the worst thing in my life. And I'm a big believer in that. Again, you listen to a Joe Rogan or something who loves to do like these mushrooms and stuff. Yeah. You're seeing these beings, like I've seen beings, and I'm not a believer that that's just your mind creating them. I think that you're seeing a different world. Realm. That's right. Yeah. There's a spiritual world. And when I woke up from this Ambien, like an hour or two after I just passed out, I hallucinated like you wouldn't believe. I walked into my buddy's room. He was laying down watching TV, and there was people like these spirits around him. It was heavy and scary, and dealing with that and my thoughts. I've done mushrooms. I could handle that and go back. But I think Norm might have experienced some of that. but it also has you dig so deep. Like you look at yourself like, man, what is going on with my life? And I think Norm, being at his age, not married, no kids,
brought a lot of things that he had stowed away to the forefront.
He had this out of body almost experience where there was no other way. And it was, and that just pounded him. And for a guy that was just so.
How many years is that now? I mean,
2000, I want to say 15 or 16.
And that was right around this.
Right before Lisa's birthday. It was July 13th. Lisa's birthday was.
Because I remember, because we go to Anna Maria every summer. It was around that time.
I believe it or not, I had went the weekend before that all went down. Norm was down for the baptism. For my daughter's baptism. There you go. Yeah. And he had went back home. And I had called him, like, hey, why don't you, come back and we're cooking up steaks. And he was just like, I'm not feeling up to it. I'm like, dude, and I don't know what led me to do it. But I drove from Anna Maria and I said, I'm coming to pick you up. You've got that. It's that thing, and I think it's a lot of thing with addicts and a lot of thing with empathy is almost not a strong enough word. There is a frequency that people who have dealt with pain in their life can spot it in other people. Yeah. Do you agree? I do. And I think you are very acutely aware of it. I'm acutely aware of it. And so I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about here. But. And it is. It's like, I just wanted him to, you keep thinking you can will people to feel better. And imagine how many years earlier he was probably thinking that about you. Amen. Yeah. You're right. Yeah. And so I drove down there, picked him up, brought him back. And the whole time he was curled up in my passenger seat, just kind of in turmoil, and like I'm talking to him and I started putting on some praise and worship music and he just didn't want to listen. He wanted to talk. Yeah. And these are signs that you grow. And listen, there's nothing any of us could do when somebody's on a way to do something. Yeah. You always think you can. Yeah. You always second guess yourself for Monday morning quarterback because I missed the bar in a few. Like, man, there's got to be, and I think that's where all of us need to be. There needs to be more intentional relationships and just, talking through people and not being afraid. If somebody's struggling to go, hey, I love you. Are you thinking about taking your own life? And I'm not saying this in a bad way, but I love you enough to know that, hey, if you're having these thoughts, and maybe even lying about it if you never had them, but I've had them before too. And being able to talk people, because if you skate around that or you think it, you've got to present it. Yeah. Not that it would have changed, but if we fast forward and, we go back home, it was a day later that happened. We drove back from the beach. And then as we look and the letters that were left, I think personally, and I wish I didn't go pick him up now that I know how it all ended, where my wife had to find him. And but the letter was dated for that Saturday that I went there. Yeah. So he had, he was already ready. There was borrowed time. Yeah. And that morning I got up to go to work. I can tell you like it was yesterday. He had slept. He came over that night, slept with us. We bought all of the Star Wars. He just wanted to watch Star Wars. Right. And Lisa slept with him on the couch. They watched Star Wars. I went to bed. But that next morning we got up and he was walking over to his house. I remember as I'm closing the gate, because we were next door at Nana's house. We were renting the house from Uncle Norm. He walks through the shared driveway into his house, and I'll never forget how he just turned and like looked at me. And there's that will always remember in my mind. You just saw, now that I know, it was almost like it was the goodbye, but it was like, I lost this battle. Yeah. And it's horrible. It's a very painful thing to go through, and so many people have gone through it. And if anybody has doubt or has guilt over that, I'm here to give you freedom over that. It's nothing you could have done. Yeah. There's nothing we could have said, nothing we could have done. These things are going to happen unless you can predict the future and you Baker act them. And, and it's easy for addicts to do something like that or Marchman act them. But for somebody like Norman, it was just like, hey, he's been through it. He's going to get through it. He's tough. He had a lot of things on his plate. And my brother just, just tapped out. You know? Yeah.
But you have been such an amazing presence in the whole family's life since then, and your friend's life, and for Lisa and for your son. I mean, you have become a model father. You know, yes, I know no one's perfect. We all have these things, but you're just, this is why you're my hero.
Yeah.
You have, you know, I watched my parents struggle with this, and they never got to, you know, that bottom of the barrel, like what you're talking about. They were able to kind of live a life, but they never turned it around, you know, and I've seen you turn it around, and there's so much hope in that, because it becomes such a hopeless spot, either if you're the person that's going through it, or if you're the person who loves someone that's going through it. It starts to seem like this is never going to change. It's just always going to be the same thing. And, you know, I don't know what the numbers are, but you did it, you know, and you're such an amazing example for me, for our family, for your son. And it's, you know, I'm going to cry before you're going to cry. But now, I mean, you and I have become such close friends. We both love music, live music. We've, you know, gone to Slayer with the Henderson brothers, and seen Deftones together, and Queens of the Stone Age.
Some great shows. And damn you, COVID-19.
I know,
we had
me.
Tool lined up.
Guns N' Roses,
Raymond James Stadium.
I know.
Damn you, COVID-19.
Tell me, just so we can kind of go out on somewhat of a lighter note. Tell me some of the shows that you saw, because I know you've seen some Lamb of God shows. You've seen some pretty. What are some of the crazier shows before our time going to shows together?
Man, System of a Down was an awesome Sundome.
Oh wow!
And that was a Henderson story. Greg, awesome dude. And
for the attorney friends of Henderson brothers, you know Greg Henderson is a prosecutor here at the state attorney's office in Hillsborough, and now he's a private practice. His brother, I think, works for Father Dr. Henderson, who's like Plant City brand and royalty, but they do their Zoot show that Chris and I love. We go to at Crowbar. Shout out to Tom DeGeorge at Crowbar. We go there every Christmas after we become a rite of passage.
Show.
But anyway, so System of the Down. Who else?
So this just System. Let me tell you a little quick funny. I don't know how much time we got here. Give me some time for him.
It's 12:51, and my next guest doesn't come till 2, so we can go another hour and 10 minutes. But your son time. Nick's going to probably
he'll
start
survive.
clawing through the wall.
Give him that mask, that wrestling mask there. So into System of a Down, and Greg comes and picks me up.
How did you meet the Henderson brothers?
Well, it's not the Henderson brothers. I met
the Henderson
Greg.
brother. Okay.
Believe it or not, Greg I met through my buddy Adam Brick and Jason Brick. Adam, I believe, met Greg by cutting his hair, or through a hairstylist they got their haircuts at, and Greg just started hanging out with us. Jason had a little apartment there right outside in Brandon, and we drink, smoke a little bit, and play foosball all night and listen to music, But Greg really turned me on to a lot of the music I like today.
It's so funny, because I didn't know any of that side of him until I met you, because I knew him. He looks like Luke Wilson or some movie star. He's a good-looking guy, and all the girls love him and all this stuff, and he's kind of a clean cut.
But for that,
well, I've asked him to come on, but he won't come on because he's too afraid.
Well, he's just a chill dude, man. And, so. I grew up on Nirvana, and I mean, very eclectic 80s.
You definitely had the rap nailed down, but I also, I know
you posted a top 5 album of all time, and I think you've done it a few times. And this last one, I put Thriller at number 1 because Michael Jackson was such a big. But I had the Chronic in there, but like Nirvana and Alice in Chains.
Alice in Chains, Soundgarden. We've talked at
length. I love them, but Greg got me on to System of a Down, Lamb of God. He's like, you got to check Gojira out. You got to check some of these bands out, and man, he just delivered me to a lot. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, I might have got him on to Queens of the Stone Age recently. He started getting in the ear, and he's like, throw me some songs. So I threw him some songs. But the System of a Down show, he picks me up, and this just shows you kind of like my concert ways. I had all white Nikes and khakis. Yeah. And he's like, really?
Yeah.
And I had a black shirt or something, or I don't even know. But I go there, and needless to say, those khakis and those white shoes were never worn again.
Yeah, just destroyed.
Yeah, destroyed. But it was an awesome show. Seeing, like you said, we went and saw Guns N' Roses. But I'll tell you, a great show too is U2. Mm-hmm. Back at junior year in high school, went and saw U2, Big Audio Dynamite.
Oh, wow.
And this is how crazy it was back then. This is Tampa Stadium, basically a sold out show that I called 2 weeks before using my grandma's credit card. and got me and my girlfriend at the time, who was a huge U2 fan. We ended up, there's 2 tickets left on the floor. We get them, and it's literally front row, right
They have
where
the
the
long
big stage
that
comes
out in the middle.
We're right there.
What is this,
the
like
edge is like
Hot
right in
Tongue
front of
Baby
us.
or Zooropa or
It might have been. It was with all the little cars.
Yeah.
I'm not the greatest at remembering albums, but guess who opened up for them? To tell you about how crazy it was.
You told me this. You told me is it a rap group?
It is.
It wasn't Wu-Tang Clan. It wasn't Public Enemy. Public Enemy. That's right.
Public Enemy, Big Audio, Dynamite, and U2 on the
What
same
an amazing
bill.
show.
Yeah, it was incredible. And, loved all of those guys. And so that was an excellent show. Man, there's just too many to name. I think we went and saw Pearl Jam.
Saw Pearl Jam together. We've seen
show.
Queens of the Stone Age a couple times.
Yep.
Hip Abduction. We do our Zoot show every year. Yeah. So Chris is we've got this plan as I buy and he flies. So, I get the tickets, he drives, and it works. It's a perfect union.
That's right.
So anyway, so one of the things I just wanted to say, and thank you, I could probably tell you this off air, but so I don't say this enough on the show probably, but you guys know I'm an attorney, right? This is actually not my job. The podcast is what I do for fun, but I had a young man who I've represented his family for ages, his mom in a divorce, his siblings and different things. And this young guy, really good looking kid, tough upbringing, and he gets into selling drugs. And during one of his situations, he meets up on Instagram or one of these things to sell to these guys, and they come and they beat him up and to take the drugs from him. And he was carrying a firearm at the time. And after they got done beating up, he stood up and shot at them. So I've been representing this guy forever, and this whole thing was caught on video. So there's not a situation where you're arguing about what happened.
Yeah.
You can watch it from every angle. And I said to him, there's not a lot of meat on the bone here as far as much that I can do from you. So you're going to have to make community service your morning, noon, and night, and really turn things around. And one of the first people I thought to reach out to was you, because I was like, who's going to take this guy in? Because a lot of places won't take violent offenders in to let them do community service.
Sure. And
he had no priors. I mean, the kid had no prior record whatsoever. And he's beautiful. He almost looks like a girl. And I don't mean that in any kind of derogative way, but he's tall and very defined features. I mean, I just am like, he is going to have a hell of a time in prison. This guy is going to have a real rough time in prison. And I was like, so whatever we can do to help him out. And I said, look, you got to figure out a way that you're going to do. I want you to be the Michael Jordan, the LeBron James, the Tiger Woods of community service.
Sure.
And so I reached out to you, and you put me onto the Timothy Initiative with him, and I think Salvation Army. He right now is getting close to 600 community service hours that he's done. He has just crushed it. Now, I don't know that that's going to ultimately mean anything. It could all be for naught, but he has just squeezed every last bit of energy and everything he's got into this community service. And he's gotten letters from some of the people at Timothy Initiative, and we're getting close where we're talking about sentencing, and hopefully we're going to be able to get him a youthful offender departure. But the work that he's done and the friendships and the relationships that he's made there have made a big difference in his life, no matter what happens with him in this charge. So I wanted to thank you for that, for putting me onto that. And, before we wrap up, if you want to use this platform to talk about, I mean, you talked about him a little bit, but Timothy Initiative for people who might need it, or Salvation Army for people.
Absolutely. If you know somebody who's struggling with addiction, alcohol, especially today, with this COVID-19 being locked down, we've lost some amazing people in recovery very recently. Also, just the amount of, I think there was a statistic like Zoloft is almost a drug that's almost out.
Yeah.
They're almost out of Zoloft because people
we're out
are so
of coins
depressed.
And we're out of Zoloft.
But I'm saying, like, people are struggling. And if you've got because the Salvation Army now does have a women's center. If you know a woman, a man, that's struggling with addiction, number one, you got to quit enabling them. It's the toughest thing to do. They've got to really want it. But there's a lot of places out there. And if you're looking to, stretch your dollar, if you're looking for a non-for-profit to donate to, the Timothy Initiative is an excellent
Is that statewide?
outlet.
Is that just a Tampa Bay thing?
Timothy Initiative is just a Tampa Bay thing.
Okay.
We've got one main house for men who live in that community, but we also have sober living houses that charge, a little bit of money, but you're living in a sober community. You've got rules, and kind of it's that next step after getting sober that you can still have some accountability. But Timothy initiative.org is the website. I got a little bit of a story on there. So does my friend Michael Malpede, who's the director.
Could you
now.
tell your story now? You've there was a video that came out. I don't know if that was through the church or through the Timothy Initiative or.
Yeah, there's been a lot. When you get sober, like I tell guys all the time, when I do, I go back and you got to give back. But let me just finish this train of thought too. Is Timothy initiative.org. If you want to give a few bucks, they can use money. Ultimately, we're housing men, sometimes up to 16, 17 guys have a big house in Seminole Heights that we've got to pay bills on. There's men that have medical bills, men that need food, just things that they need. And it's the grace of God. So if you've got some grace in you and you've known somebody who struggled and you've got a few bucks to spare, I'm telling you, it goes a long way. And I can attest to the fact that it's being used in a very good way, and definitely helping to make more Chris Bryants of the world, give these guys a chance at getting their families back and giving them the hope, because the Timothy Initiative was a major building block in my recovery of getting sober, and George Wood and all they've done. And that's, we can talk off air, but I've got some people that you want to talk about interesting people.
Yeah.
Man, I've got a list of people that you could really interview. That would be a really good listen.
Well, Chris, I love you. You're my brother from another mother. You're probably one of my best friends. I'm so excited that you came down today. I'm going to call it, this is my best interview yet. This is the best one ever. You get the MVP award. I really appreciate you being so open and honest and telling your story.
Right.
I think you're such a good example to people, and I just can't tell you how much I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, man.
All right.
Thank you.
Take care, buddy.